Virginia.
It's not any way to live. You know, I have heard our speaker say, and members of our conference echo him when he says this, that the border is the hill to die on, that the border is the fight to have. And my question to them, what does that mean? When members of leadership or members of our conference say, hey, the border is the hill to die on, what do they mean by that? What are they prepared to do? This was my 6th trip in my 3 years in Congress. First one led by our friend from Arizona, Mr. Biggs, and then this most recent one also led by Mr. Biggs from Arizona. And what struck me about this time was even though they knew we were coming, they knew that at least the larger contingent was coming the next day. We got there a little early the day before, as you know, Tuesday night last week before the main deal on Wednesday. I had never seen the brazen, bold amount of flow that we observed dozens at a time while we were there, because in my previous experience, we're talking to ranchers, local law enforcement, we're talking to National Guard, we're talking to Border Patrol, we're talking to residents who live on the border. But we look a little bit official, and we got these Border Patrol guides, some friends guiding us and so forth, and so it's pretty sparse. Not this time. They were coming across right in front of us by the dozens. Most of them military-age males, single males coming across themselves, not concerned. They're looking for the Border Patrol personnel to surrender to get the free travel, the free housing, the free health care, the free social services, the free education if there's children involved, and to be taken up and taken care of at taxpayer expense. However, as we talked to the chief of that sector that we were at, the Del Rio sector this past week, he told us that of the 240 miles there that they were responsible for, only about 4 miles had been patrolled during this recent period of time when there was just the thousands coming across because they were all so busy processing.
Wait, can you repeat 4 miles
out of 240? The sector chief that we met with told us 4 out of 240 miles had been secured or patrolled, I should say, during this period of time before we had gotten there because of the busyness that the Border Patrol agents were in processing illegals into the country. We talked to a judge, as Mr. Biggs mentioned, who said when she orders individuals detained, they are still released. We talked to a senior DHS official who told us that they don't know where 75% of the people that they have released into the interior of the country, where they have went over these last 3 years. So they acknowledge that they have apprehended 8 million, released essentially 8 million. Last year it was 3.2 million, and they only released, or returned rather, 140,000. So 3 million last year released in the country. And they don't know where 75% of them are because, as Mr. Biggs says, they get a piece of paper saying they have a notice to appear at a court date in the future, and we'll get in touch with you if we can find you and tell you when that court date is a few years down the road. They catch 100 on the terrorist watch list from the dumb ones who surrender to the Border Patrol, don't think they're going to get caught because we're so generous and we do such little vetting at the border, but they'll still catch 100 among the 8 million who come and surrender to Border Patrol. How troubling is it that there's an estimated 2 million at least gotaways, the ones who don't surrender because they're trafficking the women and children, they're trafficking fentanyl and other harmful drugs, they've got they recognize the terrorist ties and the criminal backgrounds, they don't surrender. There's estimated 2 million. How many dangerous individuals might be among that 2 million? What percentage do you think it might be? 10%? That 90% are confused and they don't know about all the free stuff? They don't know to use a CBP app? They don't know to surrender to Border Patrol to get all the free stuff? And only 10% of them are bad guys? That would be 200,000. About 2,000 people perpetrated the Hamas attack in Israel. And when we have led individuals in this country from 170 different countries, they're coming from China, they're coming from Russia, they're coming from the Middle East, they're coming from hostile nations. We don't even know where they're coming from. on top of the same administration, by the way, who brought 200,000 people here from Afghanistan in 2 weeks and didn't vet them either. And most of them were military-age males. They claimed they were doing it to bring our interpreters and our translators. And I know General Perry served in the military and wore the uniform, and our friend who has joined us here, Mr. Crane, has served in the military and worn the uniform as a Navy SEAL. I went to Fort Pickett to visit those Afghanis in my district after they had brought several thousand there to house them. I took a Marine veteran who works in my district office, and we went together to visit that fort. And we did the official tour first. They told us we couldn't come. By the way, they allowed a colleague of mine from the Virginia delegation, they allowed her to come in the neighboring district, but they didn't want me to come. She gave a very different report than I did, by the way. But we said, we're coming anyway. So we had DHS and the military personnel and so forth show us around. Well, after we were done, we went and did our own wandering around. And we went and talked to the Afghanis that were there. Now, mind you, these are the translators and interpreters. Guess how many of them spoke English? About 1 out of 10. About 1 out of 10. Now they finally acknowledge they didn't vet those people, and they don't know where they are. And you wonder to what end and to what limit. Why would our own president perpetrate this border invasion on purpose? Why would he do this? When in the history of our country has our own president done more to intentionally harm the United States than what this president has done if he sealed the border today? Irreparable harm has been done. I yield to, Mr. Perry, if you'll let me, I yield to our friend from Arizona.
Let's hear from our,
Mr.
I do
Crane.
want to tell a story.